Wittenberg Project. I'd like to thank Pastor Evans. What you go by, or do you go by your last name?
I usually go by my last name, and I usually call other pastors by their last name, but just call me Evan.
That's what's up. Okay. Today I reached out to you because it's great to see Lutheran churches getting involved in the debate spectrum, because a lot of times we're not seen in those type of realms, even though per our tradition we're very much known for it. When you look at Martin Luther versus I messed his name up. Zwingli. Zwingli. Luther versus Eck. You have Andrea versus Beza. The list goes on of important figures, actually getting together and going through these topics from First Lutheran Houston, correct?
Yep.
Church. He's doing something real interesting to where it's something that us as Lutherans really haven't delved into, being involved in the social media or just the media aspect of debates and things of that nature. So how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you having me on. And I did listen to your, I won't say critique, but, review of some of the debates we've had. And I think you made some fair points. But yeah, hopefully we can talk about it today.
That's awesome. That's great. That's great. I don't want to market myself when I ask someone to interview them. Like, hey, check this out, But yeah. I definitely and I hope it wasn't viewed as a critique. It's more so I think what you got from it is I'm glad that we're entering that space. But in a sense, I would like for our perspective to kind of be mentioned in a sense, See, I didn't know you watched it. You're throw the order of the interview off, but that's all. That's all good.
Well, I don't know how long you want this to be, but we can go for a while, because I think actually you raised some really good questions, and I hope that we're kind of at the front end of more churches doing this. We got to raise up more debaters, though. I'm not trying to jump right to all my solutions or whatever, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done here. So
no, that's a great point. That's actually one of the last points I was gonna cover in regards to that is the aspect of I would like for if, as I said in my video, that I love that we are getting involved in these debates, but I would love it if we were actually involved in the debates where it's our view being spoken of and challenged and rebutted, kind of like the Heart of the Augsburg, where we wrote our confession, the Roman Catholic Church reviewed it, and then we came back and reviewed it, but that's kind of in written form, But I think you're right that when you look at the landscape, we don't have many people in the tradition that are putting themselves out there in that sense to be debaters, in a sense, because it's a unique skill. Like James White is and Trent Horn, world-class debaters, and you can watch them and notice that. And it's a special tactic. I wasn't sure, so one of the questions I had is how did you guys get involved in this space?
Well, the very short story is in 2012 we had a presidential election. I was kind of really into politics at the time. I was ordained in 2007, so I was already a pastor for a while. But I realized, we kind of put our eggs in this politics basket, like kind of hoping that will bring about some change. And then we realize, man, we have worldview, we have cultural issues. And if you want people to, for example, hate abortion the way that you do, as a believing Christian, then, you need to affect the worldview. We need to be promoting Christianity. So then I learned about this thing. I mean, literally a word I had not heard after seminary and being ordained for 5 years called apologetics. So all of a sudden I was like, man, is all this time I've been spending on politics and that sort of thing. Not that I was out knocking on doors, actually do that now. But at the time I was like, oh, there's all these debates about religion. I didn't even know it. So I stumbled on William Lane Craig and then James White, guys pretty big in the YouTube space. And I looked around, I was like, no one else is having these debates. I love watching these debates. Debates have a lot of advantages. Both sides are present. So you get immediate, back and forth, and people seem to be interested in them. So, yeah, I just basically said, let's host some debates. And my board was like, okay. I started to try to get to know some local apologetics groups in town. It's kind of funny, though, when you tell people, hey, I want to start hosting debates. They're like, oh, yeah, let's get William Lane Craig and Bart Ehrman. It's like,
right.
Okay. I was going to start small, but if you got 40 grand laying around, and you can pay, what these guys demand. Okay, cool. So if you do look at like on our YouTube or on our Facebook page or on our webpage, flhouston.org, we got a debate page, and you can look at past debates. Say, I've learned a lot. Some were more successful than others. Some I'm more proud of than others. Some were, local community college guys. One of them is me and a friend of mine. We debate worship. Some, so like I said, some haven't gone well, but basically we just got into it just by doing it, and over time, I'll say I have, sort of rethought probably some of my apologetics background. And this is kind of what I want to talk about today as well. I used to listen to a lot of Issues, etc. I would have considered myself a William Lane Craig fan. I bought his books. I was in the evidential camp. And over time, I did move more into the presuppositional camp.
Oh, man, no.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm more evidentiary. But no, I respect the Van Til and the precept aspect, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't want to sit around and debate, epistemology for 18 hours. I don't find that interesting, but right. I think that we live in a time where presuppositions really matter, and we end up having, as Francis Schaeffer would say, second story arguments where we haven't really settled the first story issues, So anyway, there's a lot that goes into a debate, in terms of what you can afford, what'll get people to show up,
Right.
I kind of got to the conclusion, you kind of need someone who has somewhat of a following, because as an example, if you look on our webpage, I had a debate between Joel McDermott, who at the time was with American Vision, which anyway, I mean, it's theonomy, it's a theonomic group, but they do really good, Christian worldview stuff. He's not there anymore. And Richard Carrier, the Jesus mythicist guy.
Right.
And the question was, which worldview produces the best world? I mean, I thought it was a pretty good question. And I thought those two guys did a great job, but 15 people showed up, so.
Right, no. And that's what I mentioned on my review that you mentioned that you saw, is that I totally get the aspect of that, it's about the crowd. I think as far as getting James White versus Flowers, they have a issue that's been going on for almost a decade, to where the sentiment and the tone, not the debate, but of the interest is going to be there, because this has been a constant going topic. And then you have Trent Horn versus James White. Those are two heavyweights that, have went at it before. And that's how it popped on my radar. Because as you said, you're going to get more interest when you get these people who are already known, in a sense, to be on your platform. So I guess considering that aspect, one thing I did notice is I see the full debate on your guys' channel, but then now I see it pop up on Soteriology 101's channel.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Other things where it's not really driving the audience to your guys' stuff. You know what I'm saying? So what would the overall goal of hosting it be? Is it just the aspect of getting involved in it and getting some interest, and then delving further into it with a Lutheran perspective? Or is it more so just let's get together and hash these thoughts out, no matter what the groups in the Christian faith is?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I really suck at social media. I hate to say it, the YouTube thing is almost kind of an afterthought when I do these debates. I mean, part of it is that we're a small church, and I want to let Houston know that, we're here. We're a traditional church that's not afraid of asking these sorts of questions. We're, not the typical pablum. We're not a, Rick Warren light. We're a serious church. And so that's kind of part of our brand, you might say. Yes, I do allow the other participants to put it on their channel. I don't monetize. I suck at this stuff. I mean, I don't even know if I posted links on my own church's Facebook channel, So if you want to help me run social media, man, I would take all the help I can get, because I don't really push out YouTube content. I do work with another ministry called Theology by the Pint, and we do have a YouTube channel, but that's not, I mean, I'm a Lutheran and people know I'm a Lutheran and they know I'm the cranky conservative Lutheran guy, but that ministry itself is ecumenical kind of by definition. So
because I think on that podcast, you are Presbyterian, basically people from different theological camps. And so it's very ecumenical. And I did my little research, all right. My Googles.
Well, let me say this though, because one of the things that's one of the kind of things about debate that I like, and one of the reasons I do debate, is because if you really do want to convince people, because I used to do a radio show, for example, on a very small like radio channel in town that's like progressive to the max, like they have like Democracy Now and stuff like that on it. Okay, but I'm like, yeah, but if I want to change people's minds, you kind of have to go where the unbeliever is, or what have you. So the same is kind of true of debates. Like, so we've done the kind of does God exist debate a couple of times, and we've done like does the soul exist debate. And so if you want to get the unbeliever to hear our best arguments, then you kind of need that interlocutor who's, not whatever. And that does mean that unbelievers are making their case in the church. So there are a couple of things going on here. One is, can you use a worship space as a kind of public forum where ideas, even hostile to God, are expressed? Now, obviously, I've come to peace with that. Do I love that? No. Do I understand why some pastors wouldn't do that? Yes. But if the church building can be used, as kind of a public forum and seen in that way, I don't let them use the pulpit. That might be a distinction without a difference. But so that's one question people would have to come. But the other question is like, okay, but if you really want to reach the other side, then you have to give their audience a representative too, so they'll show up to hear you. You know what I'm saying?
100%, 100%. Yeah, I guess the only thing on that topic would be, as you mentioned, there's not many Lutherans in that realm that actually participate in the debates. And personally, I think that it doesn't sound bad, but I think it takes a little bit of nastiness and rudeness to be good at debating.
Yeah.
Like for instance, Trent Horn. He's real nice, comes across real pleasant, but he has a little snarkiness to him. So when someone says something, he can dismiss you and brush you off smoothly, but it lands like, hey, you know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
And then you have James White. I mean, his rudeness is unmatched. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to debating, like the way he'll cut people down, and I mean, it's all intellectual and in the form of debate, but a lot of times it's not just a scholar in the realm of debate. It's not just a scholarly meeting of minds to hash something out. It's also I'm proving my point. So I'm not really here to try to learn, which I might learn at it, but my job here is to present this in the best light, my stance in a sense.
Actually, as a side to that, I've come to the conclusion I never want to allow slideshows again. No more PowerPoint. Because you got guys up there like running through PowerPoint fast, and I'm like, no, this is like an old school oratory. Okay, that's actually what I want. Where like you need to bring your good rhetoric skills, and you need to be able to make your point persuasively in the same way a preacher does. Like they need to maybe repeat the same thing a few times and drive home the point. Those are certain skills. So those are kinds of skills that good debaters have. I mean, here's what I'll say about the Lutheran question. One is, I do want to go through like the three debates that you talked about, like the two with Trent Horn and then the one with Leighton Flowers. Hopefully the one that, as an example, the most recent we had James White had with Dale Tuggy on Is Jesus Yahweh? I think Lutherans would agree with that and wouldn't have any issues with this presentation.
No, Exactly. The other ones, and that's a good thing. Before you delve in, I'll just briefly lay out what you're referring to. Is the aspect of as a Lutheran, we have a confession. Like our beliefs are laid out, and if you want to know what a Lutheran believes, you don't have to ask me. You can go get this book, and we can talk about the aspects of it. But when you have two people up there that are presenting two sides that we don't technically agree with or view them in different lenses, it puts us in a unique place. That's why I also wanted to know what was your thoughts on that. Like for instance, Trent Horn using Lutheran references and Lutheran proofs to combat James White presenting sola scriptura. Like that's wild, but I get it because tell me if you disagree. The way Reformed Baptists and Baptists express sola scriptura isn't how it was originated, or the form in the sense where we would go. We wouldn't minimize tradition to that extent, and that's kind of what Trent Horn was getting at some of the things. But you could carry that's the basis of what they're going addressing.
Well, I mean, I probably didn't view Dr. White's presentations on Trent Horn as that different from the Lutheran point of view. I would agree that, like those of us who would call ourselves evangelical Catholic, in the Lutheran space, which is, I don't know,
a great term.
Percentage.
Yeah, I'm one of them. I have a Book of Concord app that on your phone people can get that helps people go through the confessions and things of that nature that me and co-people created.
So yeah, I mean, so I like the phrase because evangelical means gospeler more sense, or the gospel, and Catholic means the universal church. I mean, we don't want to be renegades. So we do value the tradition probably in a way different from the Anabaptist tradition or something like that. But at the end of the day, I did kind of feel like him repping on that. I thought that he would do a good job, and I think we agree on purgatory for sure. So from my point of view, that wasn't as difficult. Sometimes people come to me and they say, "Hey, this guy's agreed to debate me. Would you host it?" And sometimes that's how these come together. It's not necessarily I'm like out there going, "Hey, these are the two people I want." Although I'm always pretty much happy to have Dr. White. But I will say that to some degree they kind of work it out, and then they know that I'll host it and do kind of some of the heavy lifting. And now it's not to say that I would do any debate like that. In fact, right. I did one debate like that and it didn't go well. I kind of had this like neutral approach of like, okay, I'll host any old debate. And it was, you can watch it. It's with Leighton Flowers and Jonathan Pritchett and Sonny Hernandez and Theodore Zachariades. And Sonny and Theodore are, Reformed guys, but they're like even more Reformed than, Dr. White. I mean, they're like, they discount free will almost entirely.
Right.
And whereas Dr. White would talk about creaturely will versus, will after regeneration and things of that nature. So that debate kind of went off the rails, and it was a learning experience for me. So I do think about the content. From my point of view, I didn't feel like the Lutheran distinctives were that great versus the Catholic or the one with the Unitarian. Now, the Leighton Flowers debate got really, and they're still talking about it, weeks later. So people
it's going to be months. They're never going to stop going back and forth. But they debated before this topic. Like, it never gets resolved with them too.
The Romans 9 debate, and this is a debate. That was a debate question. It was a debate question that Dr. White hoped for, and I agreed. Because it was only on one verse, it like super limited, the scope. Right. And I was actually really interested in that because I was like, so often in debates, like, does God exist? I mean, hello, you have like William Lane Craig like giving like 5 arguments for God's existence in 3-point syllogisms or something. Like, you can't thoroughly debate any one of those evidences, much less 5. So I'm like, hey, this would be really interesting for the theological, nerds out there to like one sentence, one verse ended up really being 44 and 45, actually 45 more than 44. But I thought that was pretty interesting. When you limit the scope of the question like that, then you can kind of really dig in. The kind of downfall of that was that, Dr. Flowers wanted to kind of get into this question of like elect infants.
Well, Dr. Flowers, I think he more so wanted just to go at Calvinism. Like, that was his goal. Like, don't be wrong, the U for unconditional election is a part of TULIP. But you guys, as you said, you guys are narrowing it on that verse. Like, that's what we're talking about. And he kind of was using it as a launch shot to go into the Presbyterians, the saint, is total depravity real? How does that impact this? When that will be a debate based upon the TULIP or based upon the Calvinist system, not just unconditional election.
Yeah, and if you want to do a debate on unconditional election, well, first of all, if we had just said, is unconditional election true, that debate never would have happened. Precisely because the Romans 9 debate, where Dr. White felt like Romans 9 played second fiddle to every other possible text that deals with predestination or whatever. So, now let me ask you this, because I'm kind of curious as to your thought on it. Let me give you my, and I'm not like a systematic theologian. I'm just not. I'm not wired that way. But when it comes to the U in TULIP, unconditional election, we do agree, because we believe in the doctrines of grace. We kind of half agree, at least, with the Calvinists, right?
1.5 TULIPer, yeah.
Okay, because the half is that we would agree that if you're saved by grace by definition and not by your works, then your upward free will, if you will, is necessarily limited. In fact, so in other words, we do have freedom in the things below heaven, but not the things of heaven. You agree with that, right?
Definitely, man. Standard Book of Concord
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree. I think the hard part with that debate in particular is the aspect is that we're in a unique spot to where you have one side that will say Jesus didn't die for all, which plays into it this election part. Whereas if he didn't die for all, there's no chance of anybody to be saved if Christ didn't die for you. Like that's off the table.
Yeah.
And then you have one side who comes at it from more so an aspect of, I don't want to use the term, but just say various traditions have said his view leans kind of semi-Pelagian in a sense. Not saying I'm saying that, but some people go that route. And you watch the debate, it's more so you have the ability to decipher this before God works on it. But on that side, him saying the aspect of one can reject, we would sympathize with. We would say that a person can fall away. We would say that you can shipwreck your faith and things of that nature. So it put us in a unique situation where we will agree with the James White side of it's all God.
Yeah.
But then we also look at the other side and saying that a person can be sanctified by Christ, but still trample the blood that sanctifies them. Hebrews 10. So that right there put us in a unique spot where it's like when people leave there, they're going to have a hard time deciphering. They're going to be looking at which one was correct or which one they thought won the debate. Now, one debate's a fair perception, but when someone leaves there saying which one's right, we're in a situation where we're kind of like, and in neither or. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I hear you. No, I hear you. I mean, as I was sitting there, I was like, yeah, there's a Lutheran point of view here that I don't want to say it would make the whole debate disappear because kind of, I guess both sides would disagree with us to some degree. But yeah, no, I hear you. So I will say there are some Lutheran, I mean, I know Dr. Jordan Cooper, who I've had on other things I've done and I respect a lot, like he would debate Dr. White any day on, say, baptism. And I'd love to have that debate. I don't think Dr. White's very interested in that debate, so.
No, he's not. He's not. I'm not saying that as a slight because Dr. James White, I don't think he's scared to debate anybody. But I have seen them via Twitter and other things conversate about a debate, and it falls through on the aspect of James White wants to limit it to where you don't bring up tradition sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And due to us, like even our confession, the Augsburg Confession, we make a point of referencing tradition, saying we're not creating nothing new.
Yeah.
So that's like a big sticking point for us. Like we look at this text and we have this view. This isn't new. We're not just creating this because it was some bright idea. No. Christendom. We have, you know what I'm saying? We'll go through history showing other people tying to it. And I think if a couple of times it fell apart based upon that in regards to them. But I think a lot of people do dodge Lutherans in regards to debates because we have no problem saying that's God's business. You know what I'm saying? They call it relying on mystery.
Right.
I call it that's above my pay grade. Like God, it's not God's job to tell us everything.
I think that's a totally, intellectually defensible position, which is that generally speaking, I would say in the Calvinist system and in the Roman system each, and I guess in the Baptist system, they're kind of on the Roman side of these questions. They all kind of want to close off, they all kind of want to square the circle, I guess, or whatever. Right. And we basically say we just can't quite go there. So yeah, they make fun of us for appealing to mystery or celebrating paradoxes or whatever. And it's like, it's not that we celebrate it or like it. It's just that God has certain prerogatives and God is unknowable, this side of heaven and maybe even on the other side of heaven. And there are ways in which God, and that's where some of the Calvinism doesn't really bother me as much as that it bothers some Lutherans. Like I tend to view Calvinists a lot more favorably than most Lutherans do. Because they are our closest relative, if you will. I think. Yeah. But I think a lot of people think Rome is our closest relative.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know. I guess I fall on the side. I'm not really fond of them, but I view it as they are the closest to us. But that's like if you have a room full of midgets, someone's going to be closest to Shaq in height. Like someone's going to be closest to the top. But you're still a midget, bro. Like you're still 3'8". Yes, you're taller than the 2'4" guy, and yes, you're closer to Shaq's height. But there really is no closeness. But that's just my view. I don't want to go into a Calvinist rant, you know what I'm saying? But I do agree when you look at other aspects. They are pretty much the closest.
Yeah, I sometimes feel like the reason Lutherans don't like them is because they're kind of so close to us. It's almost like we're too much alike. It's like two people that can never date or get married because they're too alike or something. But I mean, part of the bigger picture too here is, I mean, I would like to do more debates on not sort of esoteric theological concepts. Sometimes, like I said, those fall in my lap, and I'm like, yeah, I'll host that. I mean, I'm kind of, it's not like I know everything by any means, but like there are some debates I'm just not that interested anymore.
Right.
Because once I kind of feel like I've walked that ground, I'm just not that interested in it. But I understand that other people aren't where I am. So, if we can produce content that other people stumble upon, great. But
Right.
I do want to push, the Christian worldview issues. I mean, we need to be mounting a robust defense of Christianity in this increasingly pagan culture. And even though there is kind of a backlash, I think, arguably, back towards Christianity as people see the insanity of, leftist policies and cultural ideas and that sort of thing, I don't know that the church is really benefiting from it, or I don't know that the church is really seen as a powerful voice, for Christ in the midst of these things. So I will say maybe I'm a little different in that way. I don't want to say I want to fight the cultural war every day, but I would like these debates to kind of, get into these spaces and kind of demand that Christianity does have answers to some of these, some of the issues we see going on in the world too,
No, I totally agree, and that's one of the reasons why when I started off, I said I'm glad to see us getting involved in these aspects, because our voice is direly needed. Like, we do need someone at the table who understands vocation, who understands saint and sinner, and things of that nature that you might not see. Because in regards to fighting the cultural war per se, Baptists do a great job of it. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying, but like, for instance, I almost like I'm throwing shade, but there's groups that every 2-3 years you'll see a strange fire. You'll see they're going against the quote unquote the woke. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll jump in and they'll broadcast it, and that's not speaking on if they're how they present it or what they're fighting against. It's just an aspect of them stepping into the realm of what culture is talking about, and them trying to combat it and present a Christian. I mean, even which is a hot topic right now, is Christian nationalism debate that's going on rampant. There's still some Christians in there saying no, but we need to address this part of it from a gospel lens or this. So it's good to see us, well, particularly you, I don't see many other people doing it, deciding to actually try to engage these. And like I said, hopefully we raise some people up who can not just be at the table now, because I love that we're at the table hosting them, you know what I'm saying, but to be able to navigate it to where it's more so, okay, well, let's look at this and go that route in the conversations.
So you're LCMS, right?
Yes, I am a Missourian.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm NALC.
Yes, I was gonna mention that when I introduced your church. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, not. I mean, I'm not like a denominational, banner waver or anything,
But we kind of have to sometimes, just because, like, you have to let someone know. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, like your name, First Lutheran. There might be another First Houston church. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like,
yeah.
If you want to, this is what it is. This is,
Yeah, and by the way, we, I grew up ELCA, went to ELCA seminary. I was never a theological liberal, I don't think, but, I went to an ELCA seminary, and then we left the ELCA in 2011. But I wouldn't say that NALC is particularly interested in these kinds of debates. I think most people most of them would have no clue, say, who, I don't know, James White is, or, most, we kind of end up in these kind of Lutheran ghettos, and I mean that in the most, like, I don't know, technical aspect or whatever, right? Where we just talk to each other. And I find that aspect of Lutheranism kind of boring, I guess. It's like, I'm happy to talk about Lutheranism, but I'd like to talk about it with non-Lutherans too, So I'd like to see more churches, host debates. I mean, start where you can. Do you have I had a member of my church. He's since become Anglican, but he was a philosopher, had a master's in philosophy, taught at the local community college. I think 2 or 3 of the debates I had were him, finding people to debate, and we hosted him, and they were low cost, and we kind of learned about the process and
Right.
started to maybe learn about live streaming and things like that. Churches can do, there's nothing stopping any church from doing it. It seems like most pastors don't see the benefit of it. First of all, they think debating is like beneath them or something. It's like,
I
why
agree.
even bother?
Right, right. And then if someone has the why to bother debate, the why bother framework, then it becomes an aspect of, well, then how are you going to engage? Because at some point, when you're trying to challenge a worldview or someone from a heterodox or heretical faith, you're going to have to be able to go back and forth with them. And like I said, it's a debate. People might not like the word debate, but in a sense, is he has his view, he's presenting it, and hopefully I'm presenting mine. And if both of us have no ground we're giving, hopefully people in the audience or around us in the crowd can, I didn't think of it that way, and leave there with an inkling of, okay, let me take a look at this. You basically engage this other bystander just by that. Someone leaving the view, leaving the auditorium, wherever it is, and hearing the debates.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of crazy. I can sell about 250 tickets for these debates. But like the Leighton Flowers, James White debate, probably 100,000 people have watched it on all the channels. There were people having watch parties. They've each posted it on their own channel. I think on our channel it has like 60,000 views or something. So way more people are watching this stuff online anyway. And maybe you and I could like work together and like come up with some good debates where like we could maybe do it over Skype and like we could moderate or something like that. So because it is expensive to fly people in and hotels and I do honorariums. I will tell you this though, all these guys are very generous. There are some debates that can't happen because they're just it's pretty publicly known, I think, like Bart Ehrman, like if you want to get him to show up, like you better be shelling out a lot of money.
Yeah, and a kidney, maybe half a lung.
What's that?
Yeah, you might have to sell a kidney.
Yeah,
sell a kidney to him. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and to his credit, like he set up some foundation, and it goes to a foundation to I don't know, end hunger or something. So he's made plenty of money, and to his credit, he's like, hey, if you want me to show up, there are philanthropists out there who will pay and that's cool. That's fine. Yeah. I get that, but most of us can't put those kinds of events together. But everyone I've worked with, like they were interested in the ideas and they wanted this information to get out there, and they were very, they were cool. So if you want to try to have some of these same people, see what you can do. But maybe we could, put together more events together, online where we don't have to fly people in, but they can still be pretty high quality. You do lose something online. There's delays, there's, things like that. There's nothing quite like being across from a table from a guy, with books in hand and your cross-examination questions,
Right, face to face, yeah. I think one thing I'll say in regards to like the setup you guys have, in regards to the goal of also, even though we might not be one of the fighters in the corners, but us having our logo in the middle of the floor, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of us representing it and hosting it like MGM or something is, I don't want to say branding, but more so a sense of, you have to drive people to your channel. You know what I'm saying? Like that's one of the big things that I felt about it. Because like I said, overall, not really fans of the debaters, but I love the fact that we are involved.
Yeah.
And I was kind of sad when I started seeing other people pop it up, because I'm like, probably the main benefit no one thought about was you are driving traffic to your site. And this is a lovely thing, that with the word Houston in your name, if someone's in Texas and they watch the debate on your channel, that church is down the street.
Yeah.
The church is over here, where it automatically does a little bit of marketing in a sense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's just one thing I would say is maybe, and I'm not, some professional organization of debaters, but cause I totally agree with you that we don't really have people in the realm that are ready to participate in the James White debate. We don't. I mean, Dr. Cooper's probably the only one who's respected. There's a lot of Lutherans that are respected in our world, but to be known enough in another world to where they'll sign up for us. And I'll come to debate. Everything on my channel, you're not gonna get Trent Horn to debate, Burger King Billy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
He doesn't know who Burger King Billy is. He might be a Big Mac Todd guy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
You don't know. So I do think that aspect is where you can still get the perspective of, because on your channel you have other resources. You have your sermons, you have other debates that you guys have done,
Yeah.
and things of that nature, where it would put us more on a framework in a sense. Because now, if someone goes to one of their channels, they have no reference point of other than the
Yeah.
beginning part where they're like, oh, First Lutheran
Well,
Houston.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I'm like the world's worst at, I almost have like an allergy to, like promoting even good stuff, like,
Yeah.
it's not even self-promotion. It's like promoting Christ, because, that's what I want to promote. And even then I do a poor job of it. So yeah, I think you're right that there should probably be more leverage. Like even our, we worship like our, we live stream our worship, and I have mixed feelings about that. But, I feel sorry for all the people that like subscribe to our channel to see future debates, and then they get notified about our worship service, which they would almost certainly find totally boring. I'm like, sorry, man. It's like whatever. So,
Yeah.
so no, I do appreciate that. And, yeah, I think finding the right, I'll give an example. I mean, probably the best known apologist in the Lutheran world is John Warwick Montgomery.
Yeah, I
And
met him. I met him last year. Yes.
he came to Houston a while back, gave a lecture at the Lanier Theological Library, which is like a really awesome, library. People should check it out. Mark Lanier is a kind of world famous lawyer, and he put a lot of resources into creating this library and place for people to give speeches and all this kind of stuff. But like, man, and getting back to even, evidential versus precept stuff, like I sat there and I was listening, and I was like, I just, man, it's just like old school kind of forms of argumentation. And so I don't know. In the Lutheran world, I'd like to see us raise up more people. I'd like churches to take it on. I'd like us to raise up more people. And I don't know, Lutherans, we're an odd bunch, It's like we're just like so
Hermit.
what's that?
We're like hermits.
Yeah.
we sit in our
Yeah,
cave.
we basically we keep to ourselves. We don't want to bother anybody. We don't want to offend anybody. Or those of us who don't mind bothering people or offending people, we often, I think, can kind of fight about minutia, and it's like, so that's a line I'm still trying to figure out, is like, when is a debate like so minute that it's not of interest to anybody, but when does it have like real applicability? That's something I'm still trying to figure out.
Because Rod Rosenblatt, who just passed away, or as he would prefer me to say, died. He was real hard on that.
Yeah.
One of his sayings is, one of his stances is, the seminaries don't have an apologetics course.
Right.
Where like, so people are coming out trained, but they're not trained in the framework to be able to engage in those type of things. Like, as a pastor, our Lutheran pastors, you guys are trained to the T. Like, you know what I'm saying? But if you're not setting it up to where they're used to having to counter this use of this text or relate this with this to combat this, is kind of, and don't get me wrong, it's beautiful that we're so geared towards the pews. Like, it's Christ for you. But as his apologetic, especially in 2024, you kind of have to be ready to give a defense for the faith. You kind of have to, and that's scriptural right there.
That's what I was trying to say earlier, is like, I want to try to move some of these debates into, like, for example, I'd like to start having debates with these kind of post-evangelicals or ex-evangelicals, the deconstructionists. But the problem is they don't do well in debate. They don't really believe in debate because they don't believe in, logical thinking. They kind of, they want to question everything, and they don't really want to have their they don't want to be questioned, really.
And they have no answers.
Well, that's kind of what I'd like to expose,
It's kind of like, I'll point what's wrong with you, and someone says, okay, so what's your view? That you're wrong. Okay, I understand you think I'm wrong. Yeah. What's your view?
I mean, I'm just saying, if possible, because that seems to be a move. I mean, it's kind of like the emergent church. It basically is the emergent church from like 20 years ago, where they seem to be kind of peeling off like disaffected evangelicals. But like, on the other hand, like, I understand why evangelicals are disaffected. Have you seen what's going on in most evangelical churches? Yeah. I mean, it's like a rock concert, and then they hit you up for money, and it's, the old joke of like a 30-minute, pop concert and a TED talk, Yeah. So I get why.
Or it's all law. It's all law, no real gospel or Jesus. And people don't realize that the law can crush you, but it also can lead to a great sense of pride, where you leave there thinking, the world's so bad. Look at them heathens. They ain't like me. Kind of Luke 18ish, where it's like, thank God I'm not like that guy over there.
Right.
But in that parable, you have the guy who says, Lord, forgive me, a sinner. And Jesus is praising that guy, to where you end up with that dynamic of a lot of these places are just giving law. And people leave there not placing their faith in Jesus, but placing their faith in politics or wherever the pedestal was today that we're standing on, throwing stones from.
Yeah, I mean, here's some ideas for good debates where Lutherans could do a great job in, is like if we could get a debate, between a solid Lutheran and someone who, proposes the prosperity gospel, So anything with like the word gospel in it, like I think Lutherans do a pretty good job of actually espousing like the real gospel, like the biblical gospel, which I would argue, by the way, is the whole counsel of God. It's not just the good news of being saved from sin, but it's the reality of sin as well. But that said, when people have the prosperity gospel or whatever, these kind of false gospels, that would be a good debate. But it's hard to get those people to debate. I mean, there are a lot of people who teach falsely. They don't put themselves in a position to be questioned. They kind of lead movements. And so that's one of the difficulties of debate. Yeah. And, but if I just host a lecture with a great Lutheran teacher on why the prosperity gospel is a false gospel, I mean, no one would show up,
No,
so
100% right. Question for you. What do you think about this aspect? And we got totally sidetracked from my notes, but this is a great conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in Lutheranism, as you mentioned before, denominational, I call us gangs. We really don't mingle in a sense, you know. But like for instance, a lot of people the Lutherans I know out there in Texas didn't know about the debate because we stay in our little bubble. Yeah. And then our bubble gets smaller because it's our denominational bubble. So it's our tradition of Lutheranism we're staying in, but then also we have our special little corner over here. It's real plus. I'm not leaving the house over here. So you don't hear about other things, because if we all have unity on our confessions, not saying that we're in pulpit fellowship, but I still should be able to support or go hear a debate between possibly, let's say, two Lutherans from two different traditions talking about third use of the law. There's some groups that don't hold third use of the law. There's, what I'm saying? There's first use. They feel that it encompasses the third use. Then you have some that are third use. You have some pastors that are law, gospel, law. They think the instruction has to come still. Law, what I'm saying? There's internal debates that maybe can ramp up more interest in our own circles and our own communities, to where it'll allow you to be able to get more notoriety and motivate more Lutheran entities to get involved in these type of debates with non-Lutherans, with atheists, with whatever it is. Yeah. So that's also an idea you might want to consider, is the aspect of a Lutheran be Lutheran, which is more a family debate, but it's still an aspect of this is a topic that we talk about.
That's a great idea, actually. Yeah, if we could get, that'd be really interesting, actually.
So you guys have a good Lutheran representation in Texas, from what I'm seeing. Because like I flew to Austin and I hung out with Brian Wolfmuller. He's pretty big on, But I saw his church. Talked about other churches in the area. You know what I'm saying? So there's Concordia, Texas out there. There's, what I'm saying, where it's a decent population, to where that might be something you might consider, because there's a Lutheran crowd there. You know what I'm saying? Where it might be easier to draw that interest of people to come. Yeah. To where you're able to go through momentum.
I've tried to get no, this isn't really what you're talking about, but as an example, I have tried to get ELCA folks, including the bishop here and other kind of high up pastors, to participate in some of these debates. Of course, they always say no. Right. But I've tried to have that. I did a debate on marriage a few years ago with Dr. White, and I was, so I was kind of looking for someone in the ELCA. Hey, defend you guys. Y'all are the ones that screwed the entire denomination and split it in half by promoting a view of marriage. You're totally destructive in everything you do by a false view of marriage. Come debate it on stage. Would you please come debate it on stage? And of course, the answer is no. You never do that. Yeah, come stand. But I like that. I like the idea of. I'll have to keep my ears out. I know some great LCMS guys in town, and that'd be a lot of fun. I mean, the debate I did on worship several years ago was with a friend of mine, not Lutheran, but again, not many people showed up because nobody knows who I am, and et cetera. And but debates like that, if they can be done at say no cost or very low cost, that would be fun to get more Lutherans together on those topics. Like Larry White is here. I don't know if you know Pastor Larry White at Our Savior.
I think
Lawrence
I heard of
White.
him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a super dogmatic guy. Scott Murray is. And if I could get those guys to show up and debate. Shout out to you guys. Love you guys. If I could get you guys to come, name a topic. Yeah. Let's have some fun. Other than women's ordination.
Right.
Although I'm not going to defend that, by the way. I'm not going to defend that.
No, I totally. I'm going to bring it up. But I do think in the aspect of the key, because you guys do have momentum going, but if it's internal, that'll be an easier thing. But to me, it's going to also gather some unity.
Yeah.
Across denomination, across synods, I'll say, where it's like, right, even though we're not in pulpit fellowship, we still can get together and talk about these issues that there's issues within the LCMS where people talking about worship styles or what.
I love that. Yeah.
To where if it's not just, let's say, two people already in the same group, it's gonna be the church across town or whatever, where it's like, but then we end up seeing that our other Lutherans over here, sure, we disagree on this, or like even the stance someone might not be the popular stance of their church, as if in LCMS, there's closed and closed communion. Only difference is the D. Now, this might be a little too Lutheran for some people listening, but you know what I'm saying? But there's people within the same church body that disagree on it. And there's people in other Lutheran traditions disagree on it. So it's not as if it's a synod battle. No, it's an actual topic that's prevalent all across the broad spectrum of the tradition that we can engage in. And I think that might, help also with the aspect of getting more Lutherans entrenched in the debate thing, and also more fellowship across the board where we don't think we're just alone in our bubble.
Yeah, I agree. And I hear that. And I got my gerbils in my brain are starting to crank up here a little bit and like coming up with some ideas for things. So I like that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you in regards to us engaging, because that's one of the reasons why I created this channel. Yeah. And then there's a Lutheran rapper named Flame.
I heard the name.
Yeah. We got together. Now I'm doing a podcast called The Study with him. Not saying I'm trying to self-market, but I'm saying the whole goal of it is to tackle topics, but present it to the world in a sense where these means might not have reached this person. Because there's so many emails we get from people who never heard of Lutheranism. Like you say Martin Luther, they think you forgot the word king at the end. Like they have no idea.
Right.
And only way they're able to gather it is when it's presented in a place they wouldn't usually go. Where it's like, I like this. Oh, you're talking some deep stuff. Well, let me listen. So I kind of feel that you starting this with the debate thing could be that also, but in that realm where it's
cool.
People looking to, that place hosts this or that place is involved in this, where they might end up seeing that in a sense, So just some ideas I'm throwing out there to you, man. I'm grateful that you were willing to, because after you saw my thing, I was hoping if he sees it, he might not want to come on. He probably thinks I'm gonna be on here trying to argue with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like,
let's have robust conversations. Let's figure out you said nothing wrong, and let's kind of figure out like how to do this better. And I agree. I mean, hey, I'm Lutheran. I'm not a denominational banner waver per se, but I am a proud Lutheran. In the sense that when I look at the issues, I think Lutherans get it right. So like I'm happy for our view to get out there more. And maybe I'll reach out to Dr. Cooper and see what I mean, he's what's good about him is he got the education, but he's also like into the cultural stuff. So he can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I think, man, this is not to bash his name. I'm not trying to do that. But in regards to I mentioned earlier, he's such a nice person and so kind of soft spoken. Where debate, he has debated one time, this Reformed Baptist guy, and he actually killed him. I mean, on a separate note, like in regards to the topic, he got him to admit something he didn't want to admit, which kind of tilted the debate in his favor.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go to debates and they just go in there to be a fanboy, you know. when a debate's actually a skill and a tactic to where I could disagree, but say, oh, he won this debate though.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, Jordan Cooper debated on my old radio show. I think he debated Theodore Zachariades. I don't know. A guy I mentioned earlier.
I think that's what I'm talking about. No, maybe it's not that guy. But I listened to that debate, actually. That's funny. I've actually heard that debate. Yeah. So I know you probably can't answer this question, but just before we end, I want to ask you, who do you think won the debate between the Sola Scriptura one? Is on, like, people, there's a lot of people saying Trent Horn.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm also starting
to it's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say because I'm not very objective about it, so and honestly, I haven't gone back and listened to it. And when you're in the middle of it, like, I'm like filtering through questions and I'm like worried about stuff going on in the building. I'm not kind of like listening very passively, which I kind of need to judge. Yeah. So I don't want to bug out. I mean, I don't want to not give an answer. I think Trent Horn does a really good job. I think but I like I said, I kind of bring my own point of view into it, and
right.
I think Rome is almost duplicitous on the question, because I mean, they say how much they love Scripture on the one hand, but they submit it all at the end of the day to the church or to the tradition. So
yeah,
and I will say it's a hard argument for us to make because the Scriptures were written during the period of inscripturation while the apostles were still alive.
And that was an interesting point of that debate. Like, I'll admit that was an interesting point. Now I do think that maybe I know I'm biased. Not saying I know I'm biased, but me trying to be unbiased, I still think that was a solid point that Trent brought up and stuck on. That I think that we possibly could have handled better because we don't create that dynamic between it. But in regards to the debate, which is what we're talking about, I can't bring our view in it. I do think that was kind of a lasting point where it kind of caused a stumbling block, where it's as if, kind of has a point. Like then, it's kind of hard to go with your view. You're going to have to get a better rebuttal than that. So I think in that debate, another thing interesting and Trent Horn, this is the second time I've heard him do this, where he references Lutherans to go against the Reformed Baptist view. But his overall thing is the church, Protestants, Martin Luther, Lutherans, they don't agree with you. It's like, bro, why are you're using us in that manner to
right. Well, it's kind of not fair because, like, I disagree with James White on the Reformed and Lutheran issues and on the Baptist and Lutheran issues, right? So, like, he's Reformed Baptist. So, I mean, I think I generally agree on, like, the questions of salvation and, like, questions of authority and things. But, we have our disagreements. And he and I have had, dinner, and we talk about some of those sorts of things. But, so, it's a little – I mean, I thought some of that was a little bit unfair because, actually, I will say this. Like, he said, oh, well, certain Lutherans have a point of view about baptism, and I'm like, well, there is disagreement within Lutherans, I think, on baptism. I mean, there are some Lutherans who I think hold a kind of radical view of baptism that's almost like an ex operato view, right? Where, like, the act itself is saving. And it's like, well, kind of. The act itself is sacramental. It expresses the grace of God. But I think it can be rejected. So, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you and I need to debate that now. I don't know.
No, I know what you're saying. In regards to the aspect of someone who is baptized, well, that's because a good point with that is our belief in apostasy does play a role in a person being able to reject God's free gift and offer that comes with the waters of baptism and his word. So when you baptize, God's promises are true.
Yeah.
Just because this person leaves here and still goes left doesn't mean God wasn't there. It's the aspect of the apostasy part. But you're right, there are views of where they deny the part someone can walk away afterwards. But when you realize that walk away part, the apostasy part, then it broadens the scope of it where we have to bring up faith. Yeah. Of Christ delivering faith and Christ holding on to you and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But
I'll just say this last word. I know you need to go. But this is a point Dr. White made, but I think it's a really good point. And there was a kind of unintended benefit of having a sola scriptura debate followed by a purgatory debate the next night. And one is that, Trent Horn kind of sounded very certain the first night, but the second night, if you really listen, there's a lot of equivocation going on. There's a lot of, well, we don't know, what purgatory it really even is, if it's a physical place or how long you might be there. And we don't think you can buy your way out of it with indulgences anymore, like just sweeping all these like hundreds of years of holding that guilt and shame and threats over people's head for all these years. It's like, oh, well, we don't do that anymore. Oh, well, that would have been nice for all my forebears to know when they were like terrified of their salvation. So I do think it's like one night there's certainty and the next night there's not a lot. And so the two debates kind of being back to back was kind of providential in that sense. So I think if people listen to both of them, I think that's something that they would find interesting, is that there doesn't seem to be consistency. So.
No, I understand. If someone was not to really judge a debate on its own merit, like they're watching it just to hear the views and they watch them back to back, they'll be able to tie in the aspect of saying, well, the scripture part, now you're going over here. It doesn't add up. Sadly, people watch them in increments. You know what I'm saying? Right. I do agree with you though. That lineage is that path of conversation was a great setup to go from sola scriptura to now let's talk about this view of purgatory that really isn't going to be supported by scripture. You're gonna have to rely more on tradition. So it kind of plays into one big argument or one big topic in a sense. Yeah. But I definitely want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate the conversation. And thank you also you saw the video I did, but you didn't take it as if I was coming at it with a negative, like, you know what I'm saying? As if I was trying to bash, because I get a lot of heat sometimes, it just happens, No,
man, let's iron sharpens iron, all that kind of good stuff. We're Lutheran brothers. Let's do the best we can to get our message out there. And, like I said, I wish it were a little bit easier to always. I'll end on this. Putting it together debate sometimes like making a movie, right? Like to make a movie, you have to have a script, producers, access to sets and scheduling. I mean, there's a lot of things that kind of have to come together. And sometimes with a debate, it's kind of like that on a much smaller scale. I have dream debates in my head, but putting it together practically is not always as easy as I wish it was. So, but any help, we got to keep in touch and think about ways to keep, doing stuff better. That's cool.
I definitely appreciate that, because anybody, especially in our tradition, that's out there on the ground in a sense, I know it's internet, it's not really the ground, but you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's out there. Yeah. I definitely think that we need to be working together in a sense, because it's sad that, and we have various Lutheran YouTube channels that won't mention other Lutheran channels. And it's like, you guys have two separate audiences. And that's one thing I think, this is a totally separate conversation we could delve into a different time. That's one thing I'll say the Reformed Baptists do great, is that you can have somebody like MacArthur at a conference with Piper. Yeah. And they agree on, they're both pretty much Baptists, but they're tulipers in a sense. But Piper's more charismatic in a sense, where he believes in that type of stuff, and MacArthur is 100% the other way. Right. But for the benefit of uniting the community and getting the word out of our view as far as possible, we can come together. Yeah. And when I look at our realm, we have so many people out here trying, but there is no, hey, let me extend the hand of fellowship over here. And we can, we all have this unity together in regards to our confession. We should be able to get together and do that. So, thank you so much for coming on, Pastor Evan. And like I said, I hope for you guys the best in regards to this endeavor. And I hope that people gravitate and start knowing you guys. Now, I'm not saying knowing you for debates, but to be able to be that reference point where someone's like, oh, that church is over here. I know that because I saw that debate over here. Let's go check it out. Yeah. I appreciate it grows in that sense. So I hope you have a blessed day, and God bless.
You as well. All right. You as well. We'll see you later.
Day, man. And reach out whenever, if you ever, just want to run an idea, or if I have an idea that's something you can debate with somebody, I'll just email you or something like that. But either way, keep the door open.
I'll do it, man. Appreciate it.
Man. Thanks, man.
Take care. All right, bye-bye.